I turned 26 a couple weeks ago, and I have a lot of thoughts to share with you all here. The short answer is that I don't understand where I'm going or how I fit into this world. Long answer is that I believe it's more complicated than that. I want to preface this with some sort of retrospective on my life and build on that for a bit. My life as a kid was more or less the same as many others. Always curious, putting my hands in places it shouldn't be, getting in trouble, getting in fights, plenty of sports, hung out and did sleepovers with the bros that I also got in fights with. My performance in school in terms of grades were always average at best. A lot of times I was falling behind because I did not do homework and wanted to instead have fun. In all honesty, I had the best childhood one could ask for. Meaningful birthday parties, both parents are always present. If I did my chores or had good grades, I used that as goodwill, and I used that as currency to convince my mother or father to buy things I wanted. Socially, I didn't have an easy time fitting in, and throughout elementary and middle school, I went to speech therapy because I only used gestures as a kid, because I didn't speak for some odd reason, according to others. I struggle to piece together the source of my speech impediments back then, even till this day. Anyhow, my speech therapy ended when I hit the 8th grade. I got strange looks from the other students because I went to speech and knew it generated a negative perception amongst my peers. This created a social barrier between the different and normal kids. I was ridiculed for my ability to think critically and speak proper. As a result, I would shy away from raising my hand or engaging in class unless the instructor explicitly called me out. For context, I had attended a ghetto ass middle school. What was considered normal there was bad behavior, horrible reading comprehension, and expression of lower intelligence. As with many kids, I had a desire to fit in to showcase intellectuality, and to showcase that was to go against the norm. I wore my heart on my shoulders and sleeves a lot and really cared about what other people thought of me. I carried that mindset up until I moved across the country to Washington State. And that really opened my eyes up to the different types of cultures and groups of people that existed compared to being in Georgia, where I saw mostly other black people. I finished high school in Washington State, and I could describe it as a melting pot of all kinds of folks. I came across many islanders, and Filipinos in particular. All in all, everyone was generally more accepting and kind regardless of our differences. Teachers were also interested in how I thought and even went the extra mile to support me when I was falling behind. Once again, I did not do homework and fooled around. Nevertheless, I graduated with the class of 2017 in one piece. We moved from Washington to where I am now, which is Virginia, and then attended college here, and this is where things get shaky. Not even 1 year in, and COVID started getting more and more serious. So my time on campus and the college experience was short lived in submission to the transformation of everything online. I did my 2 years and then took a break because I didn't want to finish my undergrad through online, but then quickly jumped back in because I was trapped in the house anyways. Plus, I lived with my parents, so what else was I going to do? I studied cybersecurity engineering, and my desire to get into computer science didn't come from the tech boom, but rather a place that wasn't from great intentions. It was when I was finishing my general education prerequisites that my PlayStation account was taken from me, and Sony was absolutely worthless. After a 3 month struggle, my exploration of dark arts of computer science paid off. Found out that the thief who convinced Sony he was the owner of my account via social engineering with his awful English was from Brazil and got access to their personal info, and I plastered it online. My hand was forced since Sony was of zero help. Thanks to the pressure of many eyes on the thief's personal info, it incentivized them to reach out and relinquish the ownership back to me. That was when I thought, hey, I'm pretty decent at putting puzzle pieces together and learning quickly. I should get into computer science. My motivation didn't come from a place of helping people, but rather to pursue a sense of justice and to also equip myself with enough knowledge so that I don't end up in the same situation where I'm reliant on a random person to help me. Perhaps that's why the spark burnt out so quickly. I initially never cared about helping other people, only myself. Of course, I continued through school because it is in demand, but after some introspection, I did not have the right mindset for success in this field. So I started brainstorming other options if I ultimately can't get anything going in cybersecurity. I considered becoming an electrician at some point, but honestly, I believe that ship has sailed. Not because I don't find it interesting, but because I believe trying to get into the trades as an adult with responsibilities isn't a smart move worth considering. Being an apprentice on poverty wages for several years isn't an appealing proposition to most people, especially for younger Gen Z folks like myself. Sure, if you are a recent high school graduate with no real aspiration for white collar jobs, I think trades is a great route because by the mid 20s, you will be making great money. And this obviously assumes everything goes right. I think blue collar work in general is less appealing now more than ever. It's a shame because these roles need to be filled for society to continue to function, but I don't think society respects and values blue collar workers as much as white collar work, or even having your own business or startup. There is also the negative stigma around blue collar work, and I think folks take it for granted. I understand that there is a path to a middle class lifestyle with trades and blue collar work, but what isn't being told is how brutal the grunt work is. I've seen what blue collar work has done to my extended family, and you likely know people who have chronic physical issues as a result of the profession they have dedicated themselves to. And sure, six figures is great if you are lucky enough to enjoy it. Working 60 plus hours with overtime, traveling away from family or loved ones, and working in highly dangerous environments. I wouldn't say Gen Z or myself is anti blue collar, I'm more so anti exploitation. It's a shame because these careers are critical to society and it's always needed. And to be honest, society could do without another viable content creator or artist, but the same cannot be said for blue collar work. I could dedicate myself to a company that oversees electrical work for 10 years, and if shit hits the fan, they would not hesitate to let me go. If we want trades to be more appealing, society has to change its view on blue collar work and cultivate a better culture, more suitable working conditions, and actually respect the people laying the groundwork for the amenities that we as a society enjoy and take for granted today. Now, my opinion on trades isn't all bad, and to present a more grounded outlook, I will acknowledge the immense reward from building something tangible and incredible with your own hands. Wiring a complex electrical system that then powers a residential complex or industrial systems we rely on. These tasks aren't just abstract, but rather visible accomplishments that provide immediate feedback and incentivizes the pursuit of perfection in the craftsmanship of said trade. I will also acknowledge that there is a more reasonable path to leveling up to the entrepreneurial side of things as well. A masterful electrician or whatever does not have to only be an employee, they can become their own boss and amass a large clientele and pretty much find work no matter where in the world they may end up. I will say that this level of autonomy is quite rare in many white collar roles. The most appealing factor that has many folks considering trades nowadays is the fact that the job security is there for the time being, and AI as of now doesn't seem to threaten these. When it comes to analytical roles and the likes of data driven, more abstract roles, especially in the tech market, those are probably cooked. However, the physical manipulation of the world's infrastructure is generally predicated on human intervention. Only time will tell how long this remains true, but for now, it is. I will acknowledge, though, that blue collar work coming back around in the conversation, especially with AI automating a lot of entry level white collar positions in outsourcing. So the barrier of entry is only getting higher and higher, and it's causing a paradigm shift in what kind of knowledge matters. I think employees aren't necessarily looking for educated people anymore, but rather intelligent people who can solve problems with creative solutions. Personally, in regards to cybersecurity, I'm more concerned with outsourcing more than automation. And to be honest, it makes sense as a business owner to outsource a function of a job to someone in a third world country and pay them a fraction of what someone in America would expect or demand, a fraction of the salary that you're paying them in the third world country. They're actually living really good. I don't think it's ethical, but that doesn't really matter. My opinion on AI, though, is that I see it as short term pain, long term gain, if we assume it's unregulated. The reason that AI ruffles many feathers is due to the fact that there are no safety nets in place in the event that your skill set is rendered obsolete and you need a job to live. This is why many people believe things like universal basic income is inevitable. The rate at which AI improves is exponential at the moment. Granted, it will eventually plateau. In theory, AI could introduce unimaginable efficiency with what it's tasked for and substantially speed up the production of goods and services. If this is true, then I think the price of goods and services, maybe things like housing, will go down since the speed of production can supply the demand in theory. Don't take my word as bond though, because I definitely didn't take economics. I honestly believe another factor that deters younger folks from blue collar work is that we're in an age and time where building something on your own is more possible than ever. Not only is the potential of white collar work insanely lucrative, but many people would rather build their own dream instead of someone else's, especially in the realm of being a creative or a creator. If you have a smartphone and access to the internet, you have the possibility of building something astronomical and life changing. Reality, though, is that many people allow the allure of the creator economy to cloud the brutal facts. It's highly competitive, saturated, and very few people will make it. For every successful creator, countless thousands won't make the cut. And while I still believe the internet enables the possibilities of anyone to be a creator, I wouldn't want to downplay the insane effort, luck, and skill required to stand out against the grain. One thing I have learned to accept growing up, though, is that it cannot be overstated how important luck and timing is in life. The way I think of hard work now is that you have developed the skills and acumen for whatever field you are pursuing, and when the opportunity and timing presents itself, you are capable of rising to the occasion. I think hard work by itself means nothing now. There is also the pressure to constantly create and keep up with trends and algorithms and engage with an audience, which can lead to severe burnout if not careful. Being a creator can often blur the lines between work and life, with constant performance and little room for mistakes or breaks. And let's face the facts, this economy we unfortunately found ourselves in as a generation, it's rather horrendous. I understand financial stability and wealth takes time to build, but let's keep it real with how things are going in the world right now. It might be a nuclear wasteland in the next 10 years or so. And as a result, many people, especially Gen Z, are doing what they can to live in the moment instead of planning for a future that might not exist. Many are succumbing to the consumerism and spending on experiences, and they want to enjoy some level of autonomy in their youth. This is why over half of all Gen Z have aspirations of becoming an influencer or a content creator in some way, shape, or form. Once again, building wealth takes a lot of time, and if you go through the traditional route, and many people don't want to wait until they're in their 60s or 70s with terrible physical conditions to enjoy the fruits of their labor or wait until their body is destroyed. What good is all that money in your savings and bank if you can't enjoy it? So, you only get to be young once. So, the best way that many people are kind of coming to the conclusion of to building their wealth and finances is to either do it illegally, which many people do, or go the route of becoming an influencer or business oriented. As stated, it will require spending endless hours and you will have many sleepless nights to make it work, as well as having those intangibles and a very particular mindset to undergo this endeavor, which kind of leads me to another point of interest. I understand that people mean well when they say things along the lines of, if you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything. But I believe that it's a very dangerous piece of advice or motivation if presented in absolution. The reason I hold this opinion is because everyone is different and has a plethora of strengths, weaknesses, and intangibles. And when I mention intangibles, I guess the best way I could define it is that I am describing those instincts or talents that cannot be taught, that you can see someone has a good sense of. It's like having a natural aptitude for something, if you will. An example of this that I could present would be in musical arts. Two different people can play the guitar with the exact same notes with perfect rhythm and tone, but one will leave you feeling indifferent, while the other one sends you chills. The difference isn't in their technical skill, but rather their ability to imbue the sound with something more. We've all had moments where we listened to a song or soundtrack for the first time and played it on repeat for hours because we feel it in our soul. Another example is with video game players such as myself. Many players can theoretically understand how to play a game, but few can execute them perfectly, as well as making optimal choices under extreme pressure and incomplete information, especially in player versus player games. There are a lot of abstract elements in play where having a strong ability to play by ear and make swift decisions on the fly will greatly be of benefit. And that's something most people cannot do. A lot of moment to moment gameplay is intuition over calculations. World class players make the right choice before they even consciously think about why it's the right choice. And there's also learning and adapting at unimaginable speeds. The meta in every game evolves constantly, and an excellent player doesn't just learn it, they anticipate its shifts, identify weaknesses in new strategies, and quickly integrate new optimal approaches faster than others. All this to say, sometimes you either got it or you don't. It's not nice to say, but it's the truth. Most people will invest thousands into their craft and still be average or above average at best. Many gamers will throw hundreds or thousands into their gaming setups to still see a negative KD at the end of most of their games. Just as many musicians or artists can spend years on their craft and still somehow make tracks that violate my eardrums. You can understand that process of creative arts, but at the end of the day, you gotta have taste. Same with fashion or anything creative. You just gotta have taste, even if you know how to do it. That's why I don't subscribe to the notion that if you simply put your mind to it, you can achieve world class success in anything. Not only is it not true, I think it's dangerous and trivializes the craft of what people are referring to, especially trade work. There are some things you cannot write a formula for or train people to feel. They either got it or they don't. This doesn't mean by any means people cannot work hard and dedicate intentional time to a craft they aren't naturally attracted to or have an aptitude for. I am of the opinion that most people are going to have a relatively mid to high ceiling, and hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard, and usually, working hard and putting in the time will generally yield desirable results. Granted, most people haven't put in enough work to the point in which their predetermined plateau holds them back, anyways. I went on a tangent that probably did not add much substance, but I guess my overall sentiment is that these days there's so much uncertainty and it's a nightmare trying to navigate it. Most of the time, I don't know where I'm going, but I do know where I don't want to be, and that's where I'm currently am. Truth be told, it weighs on my mind that I do have a legacy to live up to in regards to my parents. Both were ex military that earned their stripes during service and moved on to become very successful quickly after their retirement. My mother went the route of healthcare while my dad became a nanosystems engineer. They sacrificed a lot for me and my two other siblings and want us to aspire towards something greater than what they've done. My choices were either excel at STEM, medical sciences, law, or become a disappointment. Of course, I happen to be the disappointment of the three kids. My sister is pursuing her PhD in psychology, and my brother works for the federal government and is thinking of transitioning to HVAC. I guess I had to be the disappointment who was left to his own devices so my parents knew what path to steer my siblings. Perhaps I'm suffering from choice paralysis. There are so many ways to go in life, and how do I know which path is the one that yields the desirable results and fulfills me? I know what I enjoy and I know what I am good at, but I am having trouble finding where those two intersect. I obviously enjoy writing, video games, and science fiction. I am good at talking and connecting with people, and I have always had this natural charm about me since I was a kid that allowed others to empathize with my cause, and as a result, people generally liked me. Whenever I speak to people, they can let their guard down and we can have insightful conversations with depth. I'm also good at catching on quickly when discovering new information and putting pieces of the puzzle together. But the caveat is that I will display great ability to play things by ear if this information matters to me in a considerable way. I think that might be the hidden talent that I have. I can quickly pick up on new hobbies or techniques and learn very quickly if I care about them. Perhaps this is why people will compliment and state that I'm brilliant, from the way I carry myself in conversation and my demeanor. They can't explain why, but something about me gives off brilliant. Even my close friends state that I'm really smart and will do incredible things, but I don't know what those things are. I question if these people are just being nice or if there's actually some hidden potential they see within me sometimes. Anyhow, I'm trying to figure out the intersection of what I'm good at, what I like, and what societal marketplace values it at. So far, the most progress I made as far as career is concerned is cybersecurity. Maybe I'm suffering from sunk cost fallacy since I put a lot of money and time into it, but it's the best that I've got since I'm going to continue trying to push through despite the odds that are stacked against me. I'm very good with interpersonal skills, and I have shown a hint of business and sales acumen in my retail job. Perhaps sales is a route worth considering, plus, I find it challenging and fun. However, with all that being said, I'm curious how AI will shape my long term skill development. Do I just bite the bullet and become masterful at a trade? Or do I indulge in the creator economy? I really don't know. I also want to discuss social circles, or my lack thereof, outside of extended family, of course. I'm not sure what's going on these days, but everyone is so guarded and flaky. I'm considered a part of Gen Z, which I am because I'm 26, and I think socially, our generation is cooked, man. I know how to talk to people, and that makes me the odd one out, surprisingly. Younger folks are almost taken aback when I try to initiate conversations with them. And it's not even going to be on some random thing or whatever. It could actually be a common event in which we both witness, or the space that we're in, and then they're still looking at me funny. So I don't know. It's sad to see that I have an easier time relating to older people than those around my age. There are many factors for this, but I think social media is the main one. It gives the illusion of connection when there isn't anything real at all. But the main problem I encounter with social media these days is that since people are behind the screen, in my experience, this kind of contributes to a lack of courtesy or manners, if you will, due to the fact that there isn't much accountability for foul or inconsiderate mannerisms. It's like so many more people are being dickheads now and they just don't have any problem with it whatsoever. I also think the anonymous nature of social media has removed accountability in the sense that people can flake on you or ghost you. Since you could just block someone, it incentivizes ejecting yourself from a social group or relationship if things aren't 100% perfect. Before social media, you couldn't do this in real life because communities were more tight knit, so everyone knew someone. If you had problems with an individual in a friend group that you had to confront the issue or risk tearing the group apart or the social structure of the group. During the growing pains of a relationship, it's much more common nowadays to just cut off communication and eject yourself than it was in the past when both parties would at least attempt to work through it. I guess that kind of leads me to dating. I'll give you the short version. Your boy is having a hard time getting any momentum going, and to be honest, I was never too successful at the game of dating and romance. Throughout grade school, I had a couple of girlfriends, sure, but the girls weren't definitely throwing themselves at me or took me seriously enough to consider something long term. It was kind of just a short little fun thing. Looking back, part of it was my fault in the sense that I didn't have much confidence to go out there and get it, and I have always been more reserved. It didn't mean that I didn't know how to talk to people, but I just didn't go out my way to do so. I also didn't have a good grasp of swag or style in middle school, so that definitely didn't help either. I was charming and funny, and that's pretty much what I had to work with because I wasn't high on the attraction scale to keep it real with you back then. What wasn't my fault, though, was the school that I went to throughout all of middle school. It was black and ghetto as shit. Fights every day, someone getting called to the office, and all you would expect in those type of schools. My interests, for the most part, weren't conventionally black except for hip hop and basketball. In many ways, I was kind of an outcast, but I wasn't at the same time. It was a strange limbo. The girls thought I was funny, but I was too different to be considered as going out material. And for the going out term, I'm not sure if this is just a Georgia thing, but the phrase going out was how we described a pair of students who were boyfriend and girlfriend. Instead of saying dating, we would just say, oh, they're going out. The girls were drawn more to the bad boys who were mysterious. Though in high school, I went to Washington State, which was far more diverse. So while I had an easier time fitting in and being accepted for being my authentic self, I still had a lot of trouble getting some action. In high school, though, I had a pretty solid sense of style and swag by that time. And by that, I just mean the fact that my entire wardrobe was Ralph Lauren polo fits. So much so that I was known at school for, being the polo kid for how much polo I rocked every day. So that kind of gave me a better chance to make a first impression visually, but it still couldn't suffice. There was just something that I was missing. From college onward, the social dynamic of how we interacted changed so much that I was the odd one out who could actually approach chicks and talk to them. I acquired a couple of numbers and Snapchats, but ultimately it led to nothing. Nowadays, dating is fucked up everywhere for younger folks. My mom tells me that I need to put myself out there, but it leaves me puzzled. Besides clubbing and going to bars, which I do not do, where is out there? What place can I put myself in to where I can be seen by many ladies? I really don't know. My second question is, what is the next step, assuming that I put myself out there? I will say I'm no handsome devil by any means, but I'm definitely not ugly, which is why I thought dating apps were a general waste of time. More on that later. At this particular point in time, this is probably the best I've looked ever since I started growing my hair out. Granted, there are things I could do to bump my attraction up by a couple of points, and by that, I mean just going to the gym and building muscle mass. I wanted to grow my hair out to try something new because I'm older and I've always had short hair most of my life. But let's be honest, having short hair in waves, that entire method got patched. It doesn't work anymore. Girls don't like short, clean cuts anymore. I had to get with the times. As of the time of this recording, I have asked out two women. Both have mentioned that while I was nice and charming, they were already taken by someone. So, if we're keeping it real, I may not be on the board yet, but I'm not at a negative KD because I don't count having boyfriends as rejection. Rather, that it's just a matter of unlucky circumstance and timing. I also don't have reason to believe that they were lying because of how receptive they were to my approach and demeanor. One was an Ethiopian lady, and the other was a light skinned African American. Both were physically fit and cute, and I don't believe I was trying to punch out of my weight class or league. I will allow y'all to be the judge of where I stand on the attraction scale, so this is what I've looked like over the years up until now. I also wanted to challenge this idea that has gained popularity over the years that girls will automatically assume that you're just some sort of creep and pervert if you try to talk to them. And in my experience, this has not been the case. but I will acknowledge that I have the privilege of not being ugly, so take that as you will. I think as long as your approach is respectful and non intrusive, women usually return the same courtesy. But this is my experience, though, so grain of salt. I believe dating in general is so difficult now because the culture of dating apps has kind of spilled into the real dynamic of dating. My homeboys convinced me to try dating apps, and after a week, I question how any guy that isn't a 10 out of 10, 6'4" stud, like stallion, uses these. This whole gimmick of swiping left and right is so corny and unnatural to me, not to mention how superficial it is. You could chalk it up to skill issue, sure. There's a lot of things I could do to optimize my profile or whatever, but I immediately came to the conclusion that my return on investment is far higher if I just approached in real life compared to trying to use dating apps. Because in the apps, there's way more guys than women. So what this means is that women have their choice of pick, which means as a guy, you have little to no room for error, and everything has to be on point from your profile to what you say, and this assumes that you even get a match. Most guys could swipe hundreds of times and have nothing. And if you do get a match, and if you make one mistake, women could just unmatch you and move on to another one of the 200 matches she has. Most guys, myself included, do not get matches. So I saw it as a pointless endeavor if you choose to treat it as your main option. I think there is no harm in trying dating apps, though, and leveraging it as one of many ways to play the dating game. But I'm of the opinion that approaching in real life is light years better than trying to use the apps. It would be naive for me to treat dating apps as a main option, and for most guys to treat it as an option because you're literally competing with Elo and Katie farmers, which is the top 10% of guys women will give their attention to. One of my close friends, who is 6'3" with an athletic build, says dating apps are free cash for him because he is in the top 1% of guys, which makes sense because dating apps favor physical looks before anything else. He would literally show me his Tinder and Hinge apps and how he has 100 plus matches all the time. He is literally the Elo farmer I'm trying to measure up against. I have I looked at that and came to the conclusion that I've got no chance when people like him are getting all the likes. As of recent, though, he did mention that his accounts got flagged and banned because he wasn't responding to 90% of the women that liked him, which I thought was funny. Like, no glaze, it's like, dude, this guy is so attractive that he is literally getting banned off of dating apps because he's not giving the chicks attention. He's just giving the chicks that he wants attention. I will acknowledge that dating is hard for both genders, but in different ways. Men can't even get the first date, and women are having trouble finding the man they want to commit to them. In real life, I have way more to work with in real interactions besides looks, which is why I believe approaching in real life is just generally better. You have more tools to work with. Plus, she can't just swipe me off the screen in real life, right? Fact of the matter is that, truth be told, I'm only 5'8", which is average height for men in the United States, I believe. And I'm above average in looks. And having a meaningful bio means nothing. So dating apps is an actual waste of time for someone like me. I don't care how many chicks say, "Well, I want to get with someone, I read bios." It's all a lie. It's looks first before everything. Not to mention that if I do get a match, I'm essentially a placeholder until she finds someone better to ditch me for. I don't know. I guess all of this is just a really long winded way of saying I'm still trying to get on the board. Though I will make the observation that it really isn't too hard to talk to women. But like I mentioned earlier, I have a natural charm about myself that allows them to let their guard down and open up a lot easier. It's like I can get people to trust me even when they don't know why. It also doesn't help that the economic landscape we find ourselves in is incredibly challenging and ambiguous. Everything is so incredibly expensive now, and people's ideas of dates have went up in price. I'd like to travel and be more spontaneous, but everything is so goddamn expensive. And in these times of uncertainty, it's in my best interest to be more conscious of how I manage my finances. So while I appreciate my mother and father giving me tips on what to do, the dating landscape for me is far more different and worse than what they had to deal with when they initially met. Back then, you were essentially forced to experience human interaction in situations of ambiguity. So while this didn't guarantee you would find your soulmate for life, the point I'm trying to make is that you had way more chances and opportunities to mingle and make a good first impression to find someone. That is pretty much gone now. And the reason why is because a lot of human interaction has been outsourced as a result of capitalism. It's way cheaper to install a kiosk or automate a task than it would be to pay for labor, which are humans, right? I think the pandemic was the foundation of this shift. Think about the fact that you can get most of your needs met through e commerce, such as online shopping, food deliveries, DoorDash and Instacart shopping, self checkout, etc. Hell, if you look now, there's a handful of retail stores and fast food joints that are utilizing kiosks that customers can use to check out their items instead of communicating with the cashier. Many of the places people could just go to and interact with one another are pretty much gone unless you're in school or at a workplace environment. In conclusion, I acknowledge the lottery I won at birth and question whether I'm making the most of it. How many brilliant minds are out there, lacking only the support to truly shine, while I sometimes feel like I'm just coasting? This exploration is a living record of anxieties and aspirations at this turning point for me. Discussions around the shifting value of labor, the allure of the creator economy, and the rise of AI aren't academic exercises. They're the backdrop against which I'm trying to build a path. As traditional ideas of career, stability, and societal contribution are rapidly changing, what emerges is a less definitive answer and more of a recognition of the profound questions themselves. What does it mean to make an impact in a world of remote work and automation? How can we balance the desire for autonomy with the need for human connection? The yearning for purpose beyond financial security echoes throughout these reflections, and perhaps these questions are more important than any neat solution I thought that this exploration would have given me. It seems that a deeper understanding of how value, skill, and purpose are defined is needed in this fast changing world. For now, this document stands as a record of my internal dialogue. It's a marker for my future self reflection, a point to measure not just how anxieties are resolved or aspirations fulfilled, but also how my appreciation of these questions has evolved. The search for clarity undeniably continues and is hopefully now a journey that has you considering these questions with me. Thanks for giving this a listen, and to be honest, putting this out there has been a vulnerable experience, and I appreciate you taking the time out your day to listen and participate all the way through. As always, I welcome your thoughts in the comments, and I'll get back to them whenever I can. Thanks for listening once again, and I'll see you next time.